Greetings, nerds. This is Senior Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How are you doing this evening? Looking forward to talking some Chinfi and Loki after our fun little adventure we had in the pre-show.
Oh my God, the shenanigans. Okay, everyone, listen up. If you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm a K-pop stan, and you know there's a specific group who I like. They're my number ones, ATs, and they announced a comeback, and I have secured signed albums by them for the past 3 comebacks, and unfortunately, right before we started to record tonight, they dropped the signed albums, and Will got to witness.
Yes.
Me going into war. Because Hello 82, I'm just going to say fuck you right now. Because whatever you did caused this night to be extremely stressful for me.
It did. It was very stressful for Sarah. Trust me, folks, it was. But you know what? I was like, we were talking, we were going through it. And I was like, you know what? This is like reminds me of the days whenever my football team, when my Panthers actually were playoff contenders and actually were able, made it into the playoffs. I was like, me and my buddies, we used to always just get online and with Ticketmaster, and we'd just be working it from both ends. And that's what happened.
Yeah, but you know what? This just builds my fear for their tour next year. Trying to get tickets.
Yeah.
Tour and another tour. Like my mom has a list of about 5 dozen K-pop concerts she wants to go to, and as a good daughter, I have to make at least a few of those come true. But I don't know. Like it took us a half hour to get these damn albums, but that's just because the site was ridiculously slow and kept kicking us out.
Yep.
But we got them.
You got it. We got the email confirmation. It's official.
When looking at my confirmation sheet, do I notice something where I'm like, I wonder how many albums I'm actually going to receive versus what I just paid for all of these albums. So, but I have a month to get that situated. So we shall see. Now, on to why we're actually here, now that it's almost, we've been on Skype together for almost an hour. We're actually going to do this show because there has been great TV.
Yes.
But before we do, Will, while doing that, was also trying to stay on top of the whole SAG and studio talks updates, and as the talks have resumed, and there are no updates. Is that correct?
Well, they had the negotiations earlier this month, and then the SAG-AFTRA dropped right when seems like they were right there at the edge of a deal. SAG-AFTRA dropped another proposal, and it just blew everything up back on October 11th. The studios did want everyone to come back to the table, so they met today. Obviously, no new agreement, but they did agree to talk again in the next day or so. And so we're now at the 103rd day of the actor strike, and the studios did propose a quote unquote generous offer, at least in their proposal, and they call it what is being termed as success-based compensation, which I guess is which was the whole one of the big things has been streaming revenues and revenue sharing and all that between as far as paying residuals and that to the actors for the programs that have been produced. But the studios did come up with that, and basically, according to Deadline, which I'm reading right now, the reaction was pretty clear out of the gate that it flopped as far as whenever it was not well received by SAG-AFTRA, but at least neither side blew up things and said and took their ball and went home. They are agreeing to meet again in the next day or so to hopefully come up with a proposal that will be suitable for both sides. But that's where things are at this point.
All right. Well, progress nonetheless. I mean, the writers' strike, that's over. And we still got some things to sort out here.
Yeah, but but even so, at least they're back at the table. But the downstream effects have already happened. Of course, it was all late last week. Deadpool 3 was removed from the calendar as far as being released next year. And at least Captain America 4, I think rumor has it, will be moved up to the spot in May when Deadpool 3 was supposed to be released, because Captain America 4 was finished as far as filming, so it's in post-production. So that'll probably will take place. And then, of course, I think yesterday Paramount basically moved Mission Impossible 8 out to 2025 because it was just about to start filming right when everything went south with the actors and when they went on strike. So, and are also apparently going to be renaming it. So there's that. And then A Quiet Place, I think, is moving up. So, but it's done, but it'll probably move into the spot where Mission Impossible was supposed to be. So yeah, it's at this point, you don't get locked in. If you see a release date, just assume that it's going to get moved.
Assume the inevitable. But
but also, depending on how negotiations go too. I mean, even TV series, because even if they come to an agreement, I don't know if they'll be able to, Hollywood typically goes on hiatus in November and December as far as filming. So unless they agree to work over the holidays, stuff is not going to be coming back anytime soon.
Yeah,
unless it's already
Yeah, but in the meantime, we do have some great TV going on in the world. There is no transition to this next piece of news. There's a transition after the natural one. But honestly, it's not just because he appeared on screen this week in Loki, but we do have to talk about and give an update on the latest with Jonathan Majors' criminal case, as his case is scheduled to return to court tomorrow. So we still, the jury's still out on this whole situation. And the MCU has not made any official announcements on his continuation in his role as, well, all of the variants in the world. Yeah. But for right now, he already shot his scenes for Loki season 2. So that's in the can. So we'll see that. And then it's kind of unknown as if he will continue forward in this role or not.
From what I gather, he's not anticipated to and expected to show up tomorrow. It sounds like it's another hearing on just, I guess, scheduling and evidentiary issues. The Manhattan DA's office apparently filed a pretty significant motion today as far as at least page number, where they did note that there was an incident that occurred in London with a victim during the time that Loki was being filmed. Now, some reports indicate that the alleged victim in the incident in London was the same his same ex-girlfriend that who is in the subject of the New York case. So there's that. There's also been discussions about whether or not she's going to get charged by police in the New York case. But even if that were the case, the DA's office in their filing today said even if she is charged with assault, they're not going to be pursuing charges against her. And that was in their filing today as well. So a lot of back and forth is going on in this case, and we'll see what happens.
We shall see. Time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
there's no easy transition out of this one.
It is because obviously we're
Yeah.
going to talk about Loki because we just talked
Yeah.
about Jonathan Majors, and
Yeah.
go figure, his first episode in this season just aired this past week,
Hmm.
with episode 3, 1893,
Yeah.
where he plays Variant Timely,
Hmm.
Victor Timely, he plays, and who we meet. This is a good episode,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
before we delve into my thoughts about this episode, you rewatched this episode and you
Yeah. Yeah.
told me, like, damn, this is well written.
Mhm.
And I want to know, to start us off, Will, why that reaction after watching it a second time?
After rewatching it a second time and just between just thinking about all the little breadcrumbs, to use the term that was brought up in the episode, and all, I'm really seeing now how they are just really constructing this series, and also something that I read from the showrunner for the season 2, where he talked about this is really a second chapter in this book of seasons 1 and 2 being, companions to each other. And, because we did have that ending in season 1, and, there was no time gap or anything, led right to the events in season 2. And really just this how it's like it's really is a loop of storytelling where they set things in motion, and the what he who remains is done within the universe of the story, sending the you know his plan in motion with this third episode, and to ensure that one way or another this sacred timeline is going to continue, because his end goal is to make sure that at the end of time, a version of himself will remain on this sacred timeline. And when you really just, and then, all the things within this episode and also within this series, like with the time looping that happened in episode 1 with Loki, the things we had in episode 2 with uh, really fleshing out Sylvie, being going back with Brad Wolf, and figuring out that they need a Miss Minutes or a variant of Kang to basically open up the blast doors so they can fix the temporal loom, so they could bring all these various blended timelines together as they expand out in this from the sacred timeline. And then the events of this episode where Timely, or He Who Remains, and Ouroboros, it's the chicken and the egg. They really do feed off of one another, as far as Ouroboros having the inspiration to write the TVA book, but then He Who Remains making sure that that book gets sent back to 1868. It's just all those things. It's just really just well constructed when you just sit back and watch the episodes as they unfold.
So you think your theory or your interpretation is that he who remains, like, that is who Victor Timely becomes?
A version of him, yeah.
A
I don't. I
version
think.
of him?
I think so. I think He Who Remains.
Like, I guess my
Yeah.
question is,
Yeah.
did we watch the
Or
origin story of He Who Remains, or is it not necessarily that way because Victor is just another variant?
he's just
Um,
another. Yeah.
and this we watched Variant Plan B.
Basically, yeah. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, Victor Timely is a variant of Kang. One, but I think the end goal I think, is that the sacred timeline itself is the thing that is preserved.
Right.
Where, and so he who remains in game is to make sure that no other kings from any of the other parts of the multiverse can get into this sacred universe that it's
his kingdom. He doesn't want everything he built destroyed.
Yeah.
This was his, I know this is going to happen, so I'm putting this piece in play as to make sure that by killing me, you don't undo too much. Or there's a way that to actually, in this case, there's a way for them to fix some of the repercussions that are inevitable from my death, which one of them being the loom itself and where we're at with the loom. And so we have Victor. Yeah, I agree with you. I was listening to someone react to the episode earlier today, so I heard a lot of it, and I had it in my mind like the good writing. I agree. I like the circling, the parallelism that's going on, but I couldn't help but notice some very interesting editing choices, or just like, I don't know. Was there a scene or a line where Loki and Mobius knew that they were that Victor was taking Renslayer to his lab, and where the lab was? Like, because the last time I feel like we saw them during the getaway was when Mobius came over with a couple bike.
Right.
And Loki refused. So I'm telling you, Disney, right now, you better have footage of those two riding around in 1893 on that couple bike, and you're just gonna release it like later,
totally,
as a Christmas gift.
They have to. It'll be a part of the outtakes. It definitely will be.
I mean, I think maybe we all were just slighted by that, so we didn't. Towards the end, didn't realize and was like, wait a second, how did they know where they were? Maybe somebody told them. I don't know. It just, in my mind, it seemed kind of weird that at the end they showed up at the exact place. Just like with Sylvie, we don't really know. Maybe she was tracking Renslayer, but we don't really know how she knew where they were. I have a problem with Mobius and Loki, the happy couple they are. They rode that bike real fast, showing up. Just the logistics of that and a few other scenes. I'm like, interesting. But I don't think, upon first viewing, I don't think those are very noticeable flaws, because at the end of the day, the episode itself is very, like, the character development, the story progression kind of masks any flaws it may have, logistically speaking, because I mean, we can't show like a 45-minute couple bike scene. We got to keep things going. But yeah, I think I like what they're doing in terms of everything is working, like each episode, as you were pointing out, is building upon each other. I mean, we just got introduced to the loom and the TVA handbook in the very first episode, and then we get payoffs for that in this episode. And we finally get the reveal of where Renslayer went at the end of last season, and that was she didn't realize it at the time, to deliver the TVA handbook to a very young Victor Timely, who then uses that as like an inspiration, or his Bible. So yeah, I thought that was good. And then what I also like on top of that is we get Sylvie coming in and doing essentially her whole thing right now is, I'll kill any variant. I don't care. I want to kill any variant. So essentially she would go back and kill a baby Hitler because she knew who he would become. But granted, she didn't actually end up killing Victor at the end of this episode. She let Mobius and Loki take him. Meanwhile, she literally kicked Renslayer to the end of time so that she could live happily ever after with the corpse of he who remains.
Yeah. I mean, to your point about Sylvie, I mean, that I like, even though that she has been used in very good spots this season. Like this episode, she, like you said, she tracked him down. She's been a mission to like destroy all the variants, but then what was so powerful about that scene between her and Kang or between her and Victor, excuse me, was whenever Victor was starting to plead for his life and the whole issue of free will and choice, and all that. And, as Sylvie confronting the fact that, oh my God, I've basically taken the place of he who remains where I've taken away all free will and become the very thing that she has basically set her path on as far as trying to destroy. So I thought that was another really strong thing as far as the writing that I really liked about this episode.
Yeah.
It
was.
There's just so many things. I mean, that was, that whole thing. And I think, and getting back to your point, I paused for a moment as far as how did Sylvie know where to find him? I think that she probably traced Renslayer's TemPad.
Yeah.
Because that's how she found them at the World's Fair. It was again tracing the TemPad. So I think that was how she they were able to find.
I think I mentioned that as one theory that could be the logical theory that could be thrown out there. I mean, they were trying to trace Renslayer's TemPad all the way back in the very first episode, and it wasn't until the end of the second episode it was the end of an episode. Minutes does the classic AI turn of wanting to become human so that she can live her happily ever after as he who remains girlfriend.
Tara Strong went strong in that with Miss Minutes and the voice acting there, and really conveying the jealousy and also just the partnership, the forced partnership of between her and Renslayer, because at the end of the day, she's just basically she needs Renslayer to just basically deliver the book to help set the mission, whoever is the author of this plan, whether it's Ravonna and Miss Minutes, to given that they know, as noted at the very end of the episode, know all of He Who Remains secrets and why it was such a mistake for him to make a villain, make an enemy out of the two people who could bring him down. I thought that the dynamic between her, Miss Minutes, and Renslayer was one that was one of necessity to basically create this branched timeline for when and especially when she even calls it out. It's like, look, you're not responsible for this. You're just like the postman. You're just delivering the message. But you're not.
It's interesting how what they did in this episode with the two partnerships is this season, like Miss Minutes and Renslayer are on the same team. Mm-hmm. Now, before they can officially become a partner, they have to realize that the guy that they both want wants nothing to do with either one of them. Like they're pawns to him. So now they're on the same page.
Yeah. Yep.
So they're on the same page with their enemy, and so they're united, which parallels kind of the partnership that we have with Mobius and Loki, where initially Loki begrudgingly was helping Mobius, but now this season he really is a true partner to Mobius. So now this season we get to see these two different partnerships and how they're both after the same. Right now they're going to be after the same thing because they still, Renslayer still has some allegiance to the TVA. She has no allegiance to Mobius, but she doesn't want everything to be taken down. Like she says it herself, I think, in this episode. She's order. So, but her way of giving order is very different than what Mobius and Loki think need to be done.
Right. Yeah, she mentions, and come to think of it, I was listening to a review, and someone made a point that she also brought that whole point of order up at the end of season 1, whenever she stepped. Well, before we realized where she was stepping off to, but she did talk about how she was, she was committed to the TVA and committed to the order of, again, preserving this timeline. So,
well, just think about in this show, how do we first meet Renslayer?
When we first meet Renslayer in this episode?
No, in this show.
In this show. Oh, she was a time judge.
Yeah, she was literally the judger giving order to the time. So it's not just that she keeps saying that, but that's how we are introduced to her. And she's very much her way about going about this is like she's gonna judge people like you deserve, you don't deserve. And Loki and Mobius, or Mobius in particular, has always been more of a more creative thinker of like, well, more of a lawyer than the judge. So I think that's very telling to the whole order, and I'm glad I thought about that, about how we first met Renslayer. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess to my point about the writing, because there's all the, there are names of people, Mobius, Ouroboros, but they're definitionals. I mean, with Ouroboros, it's the serpent eating a tail, it's just, but also gets into the, whenever Victor was talking about, whenever he was doing his prototype energy temporal loom there at the World's Fair, and he talks about the energy and entropy and that kind of thing. Again, the whole point of, emphasis of entropy is, he's trying to keep his life force going, because otherwise, if not, that decay happens. And so you need to have that continual loop. And even like Mobius, there's the Mobius loop. So that in mathematics. So again, I think that's what I meant by the show has such strong writing.
Right.
It's because if you just really, take yourself, really just look at the show and how it's constructed. It's all about these various loops and the whole proverbial chicken and the egg, and this episode really demonstrates that with Ravonna delivering that book in 1868 to young Victor. And then it opens the question, and I would love to hear, from our listeners what their thoughts on it is. Their thoughts on, before we get the answer to next week's episode, who's behind this master plan as far as continuing its loops. Is it He Who Remains? Was it a combination of Renslayer and Miss Minutes, or just Renslayer herself? Because again, she wants that order, and she will take these actions to keep things.
I'm confused.
Place. Yeah.
Confused. What? It wouldn't be Renslayer. Renslayer was questioning, like she didn't know she was even delivering the book itself.
Well, and that's the thing. But she didn't know it. But but maybe. that's the thing that Miss Minutes was maybe alluding to
At the end of the
at
episode.
the end. Yeah. And and it goes back to the record. Yeah, I think and it goes back to that recording we heard way back at the first of the series where
the first episode of the season.
Of the season, excuse me, season where
we hear that recording.
Yeah, and I think that's when at that point Renslayer knows what's going on. And she and he who remains are having that conversation about this whole plan and stuff. And then, because again, we know how he feels about partnerships. He wiped her mind, so she would not know her place in all of this.
I don't buy it 100%. I buy it like 50-50 because I can totally see how the fact that he wiped her mind just as many times, if not more, than he wiped Mobius's mind. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I think from their dynamic, I gather Renslayer has been around longer than Mobius has.
Yeah.
But I don't buy that he told her about this plan. I for whatever reason, I don't get that sign. And even if he did and he wiped her mind, it still would have never been her plan. Like he would have always been the mastermind. Now, Miss Minutes, there is an argument to be made that maybe she's been a part of this plan a lot longer than we realize too, and maybe it's really her who's trying to extend his life because she's infatuated with him.
Yeah.
So I can buy into that more than I can buy into Renslayer. I do want to say though, if the secret is the wiping of the mind, it's kind of anticlimactic, and here's why. It's anticlimactic because we just spent last week's episode with all the TVA members talking about their mind wipes, and it's just the way it was very unsettling, and it was a very good ending to hear Miss Minutes say, like, just wait until I tell you about this one secret I have that you're not going to like, which makes me think my theory was, they were definitely married at one point. Definitely married, definitely had a family, or she did. But he was obsessed with her, and he plucked her right out of that, like, family. Because that's another thing so far we've been alluded to, well, what was Mobius's life like on the internal timeline? What about Renslayer?
Yeah. So, that's a very valid theory. That especially, and it would track with what we've seen with all these TVA members having prior lives, and that that he who remains plucked them from that so he could to utilize them for his own ends, and then so that would be it. I mean, and the other thing too, one thing I thought is maybe that maybe Miss Minutes is a construct of aspects of Renslayer's personality too. And as he who remains built her, basically, he built her to replace Ravonna, whenever he wiped her mind to basically be that, I guess, administrator, time judge for the TVA that she ends up spending her whole existence upholding.
Right. Yeah. A lot of partnerships, a lot of webs are woven in this episode. But I do agree with Loki. Thor was not that tall. So
that's great.
Which, I mean, that's another thing. Before we move on to Gen V, it's just to put out there, I like the scene that we had in this episode with the statues of where Thor of that, Nordic, right? It's Nordic, right?
Yeah. Bold. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because what I think last week we touched on and the week before, like Loki literally is a god.
Mm-hmm.
Literally is a god.
Yep.
And we're dealing with time and bending of wills and very god-like behavior. So I think that they're doing a very subtle thing with Loki, that while we all are focused on the variants and the sacred timeline, I'm very interested to see what the resolution is for Loki at the end of the season. Not necessarily the plot, like
Right.
not will the TVA be saved or any of that. I'm just interested into where does Loki end the season at?
Yeah.
Being who he is and how he got there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Or will we get an appearance of Thor? I mean, just because, from Thor's standpoint, I mean, he, at least the last thing that Thor knows, Loki's dead. So, so
I'm not
there's
even curious about that.
No, I'm just saying, but just like, there's just so many different ways that can go with this version of Loki and all. But I agree with you. I love the fact that they did, use this as a way just to subtly to remind us that, oh yeah, and even as Mobius said, oh yeah, you're one of them, you're one of those gods, and
I forget sometimes.
I forget sometimes, and but and everybody knows about Balder the Brave, and that was just a nice little acknowledgement in the MCU that they've been playing around with introducing this character, but it's not happened. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It has not happened. All right. Well, on that note, we are going to talk about Gen V. We have 2 episodes to talk about. Clearly, as we're stumbling our way through Loki, this shall be an interesting conversation. All right. So we start off with the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. In Tech Knight comes to the university. Clearly, I have no idea how to start this conversation as I just start to narrate the episode.
Well, let's just start with the skull fucking. I mean,
yeah, I did not see it coming. I did not see it coming. The fetish that Tech Knight has. Because of a hole in his brain.
Yeah.
But this is
holes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say there are a lot of holes. I mean, we start from because we were talking about talking last week with Emma being in the in the security guard's brain. Whenever she emerges at the end of the episode, and just in all that, and that's where we start this week. And figure, really finding out like Sam is actually stronger than Golden Boy, and just sort of Shetty and Dr. Cardoza, just trying to figure out what happened down there in the woods. And then of course to pull in Tech Knight and all. And of course the vault board, like, no, we've got to keep what happened here under wraps, and of course, Tech Knight comes in to find the whole truth, pun intended, and so, so it was there was a lot of, I mentioned before how that the Dean reminds me a lot of Stan Edgar as far as just that way of just surviving in this, being the human that survives in this world of soups, and being able to, manipulate them to basically to be a survivor. Because again, I mean, Tech thought he was going to come in here and they were going to try to pin the blame on her, because again, we can't let anything bad happen to these, these top five. Top five got to stay off. They have to remain, untouched. But okay, we'll do that, and then we're gonna put it on you then. So that I really like the way they set this episode up.
Yeah. This was a really well done episode. I don't know if there were more holes or more puns at the end of this episode. But it was a lot. This show, much like Loki, just builds off of every single episode. Mm-hmm. So it's just, there's a lot of momentum. It doesn't waste time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it does not waste time at all.
No.
I thought we already knew that Sam was stronger than Golden Boy before this episode, or that was kind of implied.
It was implied.
He has schizophrenia, which we basically start to see glimpses of as we meet some of the puppets. I don't know if that's in this episode. Yeah, it is, because
it is. Yeah, that's Jason Ritter.
We meet television's Jason Ritter and a puppet, and the Deep Skills talks to Sam about killing Dr. Cardoza so he doesn't end up going to hurt Emma. And because of that, he bails on Emma and goes to Dr. Cardoza's house, and then Emma ends up getting a hold of Marie and gang. They end up trying to go and stop Sam. Mm-hmm. And then a blackout occurs.
Yeah.
Literal black. No, not before. Not before we see something that we're just dumb, Will. Like, at the end of the day, we should have seen this. We've seen Ant-Man. We know he can get small and he can get large. Mm-hmm. So why didn't anybody think to point out, well, if Emma throws up to get small, wouldn't she get bigger by eating?
Well, I think that's, this show, it makes, you're right. We should have intuitively figured that out. But I think it goes back to the parent visit, because, and the whole eating disorder. And, and I think that's why this show is so good, in the sense that, it takes a very serious thing, dealing with eating disorders or teen suicide, or, fill in the blank. Because they've dealt with a lot of heavy topics in there and put it into this fanciful, superhero world. But in Emma's case, her mom made it it's just be a shameful thing to eat too much and get too big and that kind of stuff. So it didn't even dawn on us to be oh yeah, that's a power that she probably has, because like Emma, we've been conditioned as an audience to think that that's actually a bad thing that we wouldn't even consider doing, because, Emma wouldn't consider doing it until the situation here forced her to do it.
No, I feel like we got stuck on one eating disorder and not realizing that her whole situation fulfills the spectrum of eating disorder, because overeating is just as much as the disorder as undereating.
True.
It's just on opposite ends and has its own consequences. So, but
but I think, but like I said, I think it's because her mother, I think the reason, you're right. We did miss that other aspect of it, but I think the way that we we didn't pick up on it at first early on, because I think we were just sort of feeling our way through this series. But then after watching, I guess that was the third episode where we introduced to her mom. I could see why maybe at least I didn't think of it from that standpoint, but looking at it from a standpoint of there's there's the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think it more had to do with her mom.
Yeah.
So that was Emma's big thing.
Yeah, that and also busting in whenever Marie and Jordan were about to hook up.
Yeah, in this episode, talking about these writers are not wasting any time. The dynamic between Sam, or no, not Sam, which last week I got really confused because I could have sworn they were called Sam up until this episode, which no, their name is Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And Will did not correct me last week, so I think he was confused as I was.
Yeah, I realized that as I was listening back through, I was like, "Oh, yeah, we misidentified them."
Yeah. So Jordan's my favorite character. I still don't know how I got the names that badly confused. But it is what it is. Anyway, the dynamic between Jordan and Marie in this episode goes from not very hostile, but despisement to flirty despisement, to becoming a tag team cockplosion. That literally does happen. There's a lot of dicks, but which, you know what? It's the boys' universe, so what else can you expect?
Yep.
To a makeout session that quickly gets stopped as Emma bursts in, but by the end of the episode, they do wake up in bed together. Granted, and that's why I'm really glad we were able to watch like the next episode after this, because
yeah, me too.
The way this episode's end, it's literally just cuts to black. Like you think something's gonna happen. They're trying to calm Sam down, and next thing you know, cut to black, and Jordan and Marie are in bed together, and clearly Marie has no idea what day it is. Cut to the next episode. Welcome to the Monsters Club, where we realize that not only Marie doesn't know what day it is, but neither does Andre, Kate, or Jordan, or Emma.
Yeah. Or Emma. Yeah, all of them. Yeah, they're all blacked out. Yeah.
Yeah, blacked out, which we think it was Rufus, who's the victim of the cockplosion.
He's not the victim. He's well-deserved rapist who got what he needed. Got what he deserved.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like, what I thought was really smart is in the previous episode, we have this interaction between Marie and him where he's a psychic. And then, like, he does something, and next thing we know, it does look like he's about to rape her.
Yeah.
Now, luckily that did not happen. But because we as viewers are shown that's why in this episode, Kate's whole story is highly, like, now, it hasn't been, we don't know if it actually happened, but I would not be shocked if it turns out that Kate made that up as a cover story, because we do find out by the very end of this episode that she, in fact, is the person who, because of Professor Shoddy, convinced her to mind wipe all of her friends. Yeah. So it's, it didn't seem like that was the first time he ever tried something like that with another girl, when we saw it in the 4th episode. But at the same time, knowing that it was like Kate who comes forward all of a sudden and says, "Oh, that happened to me too." Mm-hmm. And I was so scared. And then she gets them to focus on Rufus as opposed to herself. Like I thought it was a very well done way for not only the characters to logically miss it until the writers wanted them to figure it out, but the viewers as well.
Yeah. They did. I mean, they set that up very, very well. I mean, I do think he actually did probably mind rape her and also physically rape her back, because I think they set that up in the episode where she has him, taking the baseball bat to his balls.
Oh, is that the same person?
Same person, yeah. He was just wearing the Homelander hat, the make America Great Again hat that Homelander, inspired. So it was the same person.
Okay.
So I think that, but to that point though, it does add to the misdirection. I think it makes it even more believable that Rufus would have done the mind wipe for all five of them. Yeah. And then later, even to carry it further, when we see Rufus and the Dean talking, whenever Jordan and Marie are walking, on campus. So, I mean, they set that up. Whenever the reveal finally did happen, I was just like, fuck, y'all got me.
Right.
Because it was so well set up.
I was just thinking about Jumanji.
Yeah.
And she did that to him because he was talking shit about her and Golden Boy.
And but also,
he made a comment about, like, I would even kill myself if I had a girlfriend like Kate.
Yeah, and also I think when that happened, and also I think he initially tried to mess around, and also Marie. Remember, he was trying to mess with Marie then because she was trying to get information about her sister.
Then
this was well back, like the first couple episodes. They had an interaction early on in the season. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll trust you. I don't really remember it, but clearly I didn't really put two and two together that Jumanji there was the same person. But I'm really looking forward to the next episode because the next episode is literally called Jumanji. So I'm very curious about that.
Yeah.
But back to the whole Kate of it all. This character is growing on me just as much. Because I didn't see it coming. And I'm curious about what we will learn about why and how Dr. Shetty got to her. And also how long she'll be on Team Shetty, shall I say. Because the next move, they plant the seed in this episode that Marie is more powerful than she and even I think that she is. And she may be the cure to, or not the cure, but she may be what Dr. Cardosa needs as he's been experimenting on all of these soups or these, I don't know if we can call them soups, these gifted children.
Yeah.
Children of V. Gen V, who to find a virus that will control them, which makes sense because Marie has blood powers, and we do see in this episode she's able to figure out pretty quickly that she has a tracker planted in herself and pull it out. And between that, the dick explosion, the healing or the healing of someone who's been badly cut. Her powers are more than just let me cut myself and let this blood whip come out. Like, I think it's interesting that they are doing a good job of peppering in these instances where she has to use her powers or she has to creatively use her powers in a way that I don't think she ever has thought about. I think she's only ever done unfortunately the cutting, because that's force, and that. But I mean, logically, she could give people heart attacks. She could. She can control the blood of others.
Yeah. I mean, which I think leads to a couple of things. First, I want to go back to one point you made about Kate and Dean Shetty. It goes back to she was able to manipulate her because of the story that we learned about Kate and her telling her brother to go away way back on Parents' Weekend. And remember, her mom, after that, her mother never hugged her again or never touched her again. So, we've seen, and they did a good with how manipulative Shetty is, and we've seen how she manipulates students because we saw how she did it with Marie, and she'll figure out that weak point that she just uses to get those students to do her bidding. So I think I think that's how she was able to do that. And then you're right about Marie and just not knowing her full capabilities, her power, and to the place where she could be like the representative who the mind blower who could be
the head blower, head exploder.
Yeah.
Mind blower. What are you talking about? But
as far as the control for Homelander, I think she's the benefactor.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask you, do you think that? Yeah, because that would make logically, because we do get that breadcrumb in this episode by Shetty that Cardoza can't experiment on Marie because she has a benefactor, which would make a lot of sense if it's someone with similar powers.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like that. That.
It's either her or Edgar.
It definitely, it's someone we know. I would be shocked if someone we don't know. But this universe is so big, and we've seen so many deep cameos. I know it's not the deep.
It's not the deep.
Not that
deep. The deep was in the woods.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, but yeah. But what I also, it's. I think I mentioned this last week, but I just can't reiterate it enough. But I say this because I wanna just spend 1 minute on Andre. Out of the gang, he's the least favorite, and it's just because I found it a bit odd how, like in the previous episode, he was very active, and I was like, okay, I can get on board with this. I can even get on board with him and Kate, and I'm still kind of a bit like, yeah, Kate, you fucked that up. But what I did not appreciate was the very next episode, like, he quickly gives up on trying to find Emma and goes back to just smoking. And then, I don't know. I don't know if he's only interesting because of the father, because of his dynamic with his dad. In that generational, and we are dealing with young adults, so the disillusionment of your parents not being who you think they are, that's relatable. But I have yet to really see something in him that is very unique that I'm finding in a lot of these other characters.
But given what we learned at the end of the episode, I think he's being wiped a lot when they're intimate, when they're having sex. I think, because, we do cut, he forgets about Emma and stuff, and just all throughout, I think Kate, especially once he confided in her that he knows about the woods and all the things that happens with that, and we learn her relationship with Shetty and everything.
Yeah.
I look at it as Andre as the victim in all of this, compared to some of the other folks seem to be they're more in control of their situations. Andre is a victim of the larger story that is unfolding.
Yeah.
So I think he's, I don't know so for me, it's not a question of whether or not he's one of my favorites. I think the revelation that we get about Kate at the end of this episode and his reaction, because the thing about Kate's powers is, she can make you, she can ease the pain and stuff. She can't take your memory away. She can just sort of make the memory just, be blocked for a while, black out. but then she can put it back in. And then, of course, and we do see her put all those things that she had like blocked out from him back into his brain. And that's when he's like, you're a fucking monster. So, I mean, he's to this point, he's been, I guess he's the most tragic of the characters that we've seen so far.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I do think that she doesn't just ease it and make you forget for a while. It's like she pulls that memory out of you, and then when she wants you to know, she'll put it back in.
I think but thinking about how, but like, she can control what she does because she like with Golden Boy and Sam. I mean, she left that pain there. She didn't block it out so that he could, So I think there is some measure of control there.
Okay.
And just easing and just blacking it out. So, because I mean, because Sam, like whenever we see Sam at the beginning of this episode, Kate wasn't able to touch him, so he was still able to remember what all happened that night at Cardoza's house, unlike everybody else.
Yeah. Well, we don't know why he wasn't mind wiped and everybody else was.
Well, yeah. Oh, well, I think didn't he like get out? Did he get? I'm trying to remember how the fight went down, but in the fourth episode, but somehow
the fight went down. They went outside.
Oh yeah.
They were about to square off. Big Emma comes in.
Yeah.
Cut to black.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we weren't shown at all, from what I recall, of how Sam still ended up leaving, while everyone else and I don't know how Kate managed to mind wipe so many people at once. Like. That's what I kept thinking about. The way they cut it, she doesn't have a power where she grows extra limbs, I'm pretty sure. So
No, but let's see. But I mean, I know what Sam, when he was throwing, whenever he was going berserk there in Cardoza's house, I mean, didn't Andre get knocked out? So she was able to maybe she was able to touch.
No, because I thought he still came outside with them. They did throw a fridge at him.
Yeah.
At Sam. There was a lot of in-house fighting. Then they moved to the backyard.
Right.
All I remember is really Emma getting big.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, she got big and then was able to pin him down, and then everything went black.
Not pin him down.
Yeah.
I don't think she ever touched Sam. She just was trying to talk him out of it.
Yeah.
Because even in his mental state, it still seems like, despite all of that, Emma's the one who can talk him down. So she was doing that. I feel like Marie was about to cut herself and then cut to black.
Oh, yeah. No, she had cut herself because didn't she had wrapped him up in the blood.
I remember that in the house.
Yeah, in the house.
Outside of the house.
No, right.
Yeah. And they cut to black outside of the house.
Right.
So yeah. And inside the house, he does yell at Kate. I don't know where Kate is once they move outside. Yeah. So it's a very well structured sequence, just because even as viewers you're left being like, well, wait, we still don't technically know how this fight resolved.
Yeah, we don't.
Just like the characters, even though they figured out they got mind wiped, they don't know exactly what was wiped or why it was wiped. And I'm guessing, now that we're talking about Kate's powers and how it seemed at the end of the episode how she is able to replant the memories that were wiped, that she took out, I'm sure she's going to be filling in a lot of blanks to get back some redemption points. But we shall see. We exchange one couple for a new couple as Jordan Marie. That is definitely a thing.
Yep.
I I just want to shout out my girl Emma also has the lines. I'm just gonna say that. But them friend.
Yep.
Tell me about your them friend.
Them
I'm
friend.
like,
Yeah.
I can't deny that. I'm just really I'm really curious about this dynamic in this relationship, just to see what they choose to explore in it.
Mhm.
And I found it interesting how they changed to the boy version
Yeah.
right before the first kiss.
Yep.
But they wake up in bed, it's the girl version.
Yep.
And I think that's why in the fourth episode or the fifth episode, Jordan was so hesitant, is because I'm still sticking, like, they prefer themselves as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
But they have it stuck in their mind that Marie only likes the boy version. But I'm thinking to myself, you really need to reflect. How many times have you interacted with Marie as the boy version? Not that many.
Not that many. Yeah.
Not that many. I don't think that's what she's not. I think, though, at the end of it, if this is a ship, a real ship, then it's going to ultimately, I don't care which version, I like both.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. I think that's I think they'll go that route as well. And again, like I said, the show really does a great job of like tackling things, because even speaking of Emma, I think when she finally, because of Big Emma, she like hit 100, cracks the 100 as far as the top, and all the social media likes, and this show has been all throughout, even going back to The Boys and like Starlight using social media. I mean, it's just so topical and so timely as far as just like the utilization of media and the manipulation of media and branding and all that kind of stuff, and we see it like there at God U and with Tech Night in the fourth episode, and in this episode, like, can't touch those five, and also, October's has been a great month of TV as far as the superhero shows.
Yeah, definitely. And on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK.
You can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBLMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Threads at scene_n_nerd. And visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you hear podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.